Aloha and welcome to our Evangelization Through the Corporal Works of Mercy webinar series hosted by the Damien and Marianne Catholic Conference. Today, our webinar title is Leading by Example, the Legacy of Father Damien in the United States of America. Aloha, I'm Deacon Modesto Cordero. I'm the chair of the Damien and Marianne Catholic Conference and currently the director of liturgy for the Diocese of Honolulu. And I want to welcome you to this, our webinar series. And we are very honored today to have with us as our guest speaker, Mr. Nicolas Polet. Mr. Nicolas Polet, he is the Director of Public Affairs at the Diplomatic Delegation of Flanders, based in New York City. In this role, he represents Flanders, the northern Dutch-speaking region of Belgium in the United States. And together with his colleagues from Flanders Investment and Trade and Visit Flanders, Nicolas promotes the diplomatic, economic, academic, and cultural interests of Flanders in the United States. Nicolas has been working at the delegation in New York since 2009, and previously he was active in the financial service sector at an American Fortune 500 company. Nicolas is also the chairman of the local Gwent University Alumni Association on the East Coast. In 2006, he graduated as a historian at Gwent University in Bergen with a thesis on Bergen's colonial past, after which he obtained a master in business economics at the same institution. Nicolas is married and lives in Manhattan. So with any further ado, please help me welcome this morning presenter, Mr. Nicolas C. Polet. Welcome, Nicolas.
Thank you, Deacon Cordero, again for inviting me to today's talk. I also would like to thank the Damien and Marianne Catholic Conference for inviting me, and I wish them a successful webinar series this year. And of course, we all hope that next year the conference can happen in person. Today's talk will be called The Legacy of Father Damien in the United States. And again, my name is Nicolas Polet, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the Delegation of Flanders in the United States. As you can see, Flanders is a northern Dutch-speaking region of Belgium. Here on the map, Flanders is the yellow-colored part of Belgium. And as you know, or you know now, Belgium is very centrally located in Europe, very close to the Netherlands, Germany, France, and across the channel, the United Kingdom. And here is a zoom in on country of Belgium with Flanders in the north, as I mentioned, and our French-speaking friends in the south, Wallonia. So today's presentation will highlight, of course, the very important figure, Father Damien, now Saint Damien, of course, both here in the United States, but also in Belgium. So Father Damien, of course, you see here on the map, born in Belgium and traveled all the way in the late 19th century to Hawaii, and more specifically to the island of Molokai and Kalopapa. And I will just give you a brief overview of that history. So he was canonized in 2009 and commemorated with monuments, statues, both in Hawaii and Washington, D.C. In Hawaii, for those of you familiar, is in front of the state capitol. In Washington, D.C., in the Capitol, in Statuary Hall. And since 2015, he also has the honor of a street named after him in New York City. So just to go back to the beginning, he was born in Belgium, as I mentioned, in the Flemish city of Tremelo, which, as you see on the map, is in the center of the city, of the country, I mean. And then he joined he went to Leuven to go to join the Brothers of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary. So and that was when he was about 20 years old. So that's when he joined the official, let's say, Catholic faith institutions there. After his passage in Leuven, he went to Paris and to join officially the Congregation of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary there in their headquarters. And that headquarters was located in the Rue de Picpus. And that's why Father Damien and his brothers are also sometimes called the Picpus brothers, because of that street in Paris. So he studied there before coming to America. So in 1864, he took that very important journey. His brother was also a father, and he got sick, unfortunately. So Father Damien, born Joseph de Veuster, but Father Damien, he took that name in Leuven, replaced his brother in Hawaii. So of course, in the 19th century, middle of 19th century, a very dangerous journey. And he came to Oahu in 1864 and was ordained in the priesthood on May 21st, 1864, and in the church that is now called Cathedral of Our Lady of Peace, which people living in Oahu know very well. So in 1865, he made the journey from Oahu, Honolulu to Molokai to join the congregation there. He volunteered, which was very important, to go to the isolated settlement of Kalaupapa. And in that time, of course, it was a great health crisis that was going on there, with people being sent there who suffered from Hansen's disease, or what they then called leprosy. And I will get to that a little bit later as well. So that's his work in Hawaii. So this, what you see now, is basically the act to prevent the spread of leprosy. So in the 1830s and 1840s, workers allegedly carried a new disease over to the Hawaiian Islands, which was called leprosy. Now, of course, Hansen's disease. At that time, the highly contagious disease was found to be incurable. So out of fear, the local authorities passed this act, and this act required the people suffering from Hansen's disease to be moved to an isolated settlement on the island of Molokai. And of course, that really led to an isolation of these people, of these patients who were not really being properly taken care of. I had the honor of visiting Kalaupapa a few years ago, and I saw for myself, although it's a very beautiful island, Molokai, it is, of course, a natural prison. So once you were there was really no way or means to get off that island, to have contact with your former family or friends. So that's where Father Damien comes into play. So here on the right, you see a priest called Maigret, who was a French priest who actually sent Damien to Kalaupapa, and the original idea was for having the priests kind of rotate in and out of Kalaupapa, but Damien elected to stay. So he was very committed, and not only to the spiritual well-being, but also to the physical well-being of the community in Kalaupapa. So this is a quote from his first speech when he arrived in Kalaupapa, and I'm sure you can all read it for yourselves. One who will be a father to you and who loves you so much that he does not hesitate to become one of you, to live and to die with you. So these are, again, you know, a quotation that really shows that Damien had a real commitment towards these people who were isolated from society and who not only, you know, were cut off from their family, from decent healthcare, but also, you know, physically from the rest of the island. If you would ever go to Molokai or Kalaupapa, it's one of the highest sea cliffs in the world. So there's really no way from getting to the from the settlement in Kalaupapa to the rest of Hawaii. So in that sense, he was also, you know, isolating himself from his own Catholic hierarchy and his own Catholic community to be with the patients and to take care of them. So here you see Father Damien with some of the people living there. And this is the Kalawao Girls Choir in the 1870s. He helped care for the people of Molokai, as I was saying, helped improve their state of living, aided the colony by teaching, painted houses, organizing farms, organizing the construction of chapels, roads, hospitals, and churches, anything from digging graves to dressing people. Damien fully engaged with the community, and most importantly, he lived with them as equals. And this is also something that I, in my conversations, the last, you know, say 5 to 8 years, have in my conversation with stakeholders, with the Catholic Church, with non-for-profits, with other human rights activists, have emphasized is that, you know, in that sense, he was much more than your traditional parish priest, right? He really pulled up his sleeves and really went to work together with the community as one of the community, you know, building houses, painting things that you might not really expect from a priest in that time, for that matter. So really living with them, and that's really something that, you know, we try to highlight in his life. And I feel for the people who don't know Damien as well, is really something to remember and to be conscious of. Of course, Damien wasn't there alone. In 1883, Mother Marianne Cope, now known as Mother Marian, also a saint in her own right, from Syracuse, New York, from Germany originally, but from Syracuse, New York, joined Damien and came to Molokai to help with the people suffering of Hansen's disease, and help also develop medical infrastructure on the island. And here, if we skip a little bit, in 1889, Father Damien succumbed to Hansen's disease himself. So basically, you know, he made the ultimate sacrifice, not only living with these patients that were outcast out of society for what was then an incurable disease, living with them, eating with them, praying with them, but eventually he also died as one of them, which is, of course, you know, the most or the biggest sign of self-sacrifice that a human being can give as a priest, but also, of course, as a human being. So 11 years after his arrival in Molokai, Father Damien contracted leprosy. He continued to work despite his infection and carried on his duties. In 1888, Marianne Cope moved to Kalaupapa and cared for Damien when he was dying, and took over his burdens. Surprisingly, Mother Marianne never contracted the disease. And when Damien died on April 15th, 1889. So last month, over 100 years ago, the government officially gave Marion Cope the charge to take care of the boys and girls in Kalaupapa, and that added to her original task of taking care of the female community on the island. And she focused a lot on medical help and medical hospital infrastructure on the island. So that is, in a sense, a short overview of Father Damien's life in Belgium and his search of faith, coming to eventually to America, to the island of Hawaii, and his death. Of course, I am definitely not an expert on Father Damien's life, but I think it's important for you to have some context to understand why the government of Flanders feels he's such an important figure in our history and in our heritage, and why we also want to help people in Hawaii, partners all over America, in celebrating his life and commemorating his important work in the 21st century. So in that sense, he's really received a big chunk of global recognition. And here you see a timeline of important events leading up to his canonization in 2009. So just to go over them real quickly: 1968, initiation of the beatification process, 1977, declared venerable, 1991, the first miracle, 1995, beatified, 2008, you see here the second miracle, the healing of Audrey Toguchi, and then finally in 2009, canonized by Pope Benedict XVI. Of course, as he is a Belgian native, there's a lot of recognition in what I would call my home country, of course. That is the Damien Museum in Tremelo, pictured here. Then, of course, the St. Antonius Chapel in Leuven, where there is the Father Damien crypt, as you can see on the left. So I'm sure some of you, or a few of you, have already visited his remains there. In Belgium, of course, there's a lot of streets and statues named after him. Flanders has more than 10 outdoor statues, 6 indoors, and at least 28 streets and squares named after Father Damien or Joseph de Veuster. So that just shows you, or gives you a small indication for how important he is as a figure for Belgium. And of course, second part of his of this chapter, just like second part of his life, from Belgium to the United States. Remember the map. Many statues here, memorials and tributes all around. Of course, not only in Hawaii, where he has a special bond, but also in the rest of the United States. Here you see the two most famous statues, most likely of Father Damien, left in front of the state capitol in Honolulu, and right in Statuary Hall in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Father Damien is, together with King Kamehameha, the only two let's say, American statues in Capitol Hill. So that just tells you something, how important he is to the people of Hawaii, that they would elect a Belgian national, someone who they shared life and death with, to be representing Hawaii in America's capital. The artist is Marisol Escobar, who is a Venezuelan-American sculptor originally born in Paris. She was one of more than 60 candidates to make to statue, and in the end she was selected. As you can see here on the right side, she chose to kind of sculpt Father Damien in his older age already, when he was already affected with the disease, and you see how disfigured his face is. So she chose to sculpt him in a sense that he already was affected with the disease and lived with the patients for many years, rather than to show a young and vibrant Damien who just arrived, which I think personally is probably one of the reasons why, of course, she was selected, to show the sacrifice and to show the commitment that Damien showed. Marisol Escobar's art has been exhibited in America for the last decades. In the Museum of Modern Art in New York, there was a sculpture of President Johnson here on the left. And in 2014, a little bit more than 6 years ago, there was a exhibition on her life and her work at El Museo del Barrio, which is here on the East Harlem area in New York City. And then, of course, many other churches in America, of course, in Honolulu. Here you see, to name the left, of course, for you guys in Hawaii, very familiar. And on the right, in California. There's also, of course, a Damien High School in Hawaii. And then we come to his recognition around the world. For instance, in Quebec, in Canada, there's a school named after him, but also in Ireland, in Belgium, and even in France, maybe in a typical fashion, there's a winery named after him, where they produce wines with his name on it. So someone who has been really recognized around the world for his work. There's also, of course, been entertainment. Since the start of Hollywood, there's been films made after him, or about him rather. Here on the left, you see an Oscar-nominated short film, The Great Heart, from the 1930s. Another Emmy winner for a PBS broadcast on the right. There's movies made, Molokai, Damien the Leper Priest, and of course also books written by John Farrow, the son of Mia Farrow, if I'm correct, and the composite of his letters edited by his brother, and then also The Spirit of Father Damien, and another book which makes the connections between the life and work of Father Damien in the 19th century, but also how relevant he is for our times in the late 20th and now, of course, the 21st century. Damien also was an example to many important figures around the world and in history, and of course for Gandhi, right? He was an inspiration, as you can see, leading to the independence for his people and securing aid for those who needed it. Also, of course, Mother Teresa was inspired by Damien for her work in Calcutta. So two very important historical people that really took an inspiration from Damien. So something that is very important, I feel, to share with you today. And also a few years ago, Mr. Sasakawa was given a Gandhi Prize. Basically, he is the World Health Organization Goodwill Ambassador for Leprosy Elimination, and also Japan's ambassador for the human rights of people affected with leprosy. So in 2010, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution on ending discrimination against people affected by leprosy, and which was endorsed unanimously by the 192 countries And this resolution approved principles and guidelines declaring that states should promote, protect, and ensure the full realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms for persons affected by leprosy. And I think this is just a good moment to kind of talk about why, Father Damien is such an interesting figure, not only about the work that he did in Kalaupapa in a medical setting, caring for them who contracted leprosy or Hansen's disease, but also being a human rights activist avant la lettre, meaning he went in there when no one else wanted him to, right? Not his own superiors, not any local government in Hawaii. Basically, a lot of people, weren't supportive of him going, but he felt he really needed to, and that's why this sense of inclusion for those who were cast aside is just so very important and can be an example for us, not only in the religious sense, but also, of course, in the human rights sense and in the everyday sense, how we interact with neighbors and partners and society at large. So, of course, this is Rigo Peters. He's a Belgian who started the Damien Actie, which is a non-governmental organization engaged in providing treatment and rehabilitation services for people affected with Hansen's disease. So a non-for-profit in Belgium started to take care of these people in his honor. And yes, and then not so long ago, about 15 years ago, Father Damien was voted by the VRT, which is basically the public broadcasting company in Flanders, as the greatest Belgian of all time. So you see, he's not only revered in Hawaii, across America and around the world, but of course also in his birthplace. So of all the Belgians that were selected to enter the competition, he came out as the winner, which is just another way of showing our respect as a country to this great individual. And now I come to our own initiatives. So as I mentioned, we, as the government of Flanders, Belgium, have many activities and events talking about arts and culture and academic research, as well as political and diplomatic activities. But of course, talking about our history and our heritage is also an important goal for us. And in that sense, I just want to take you over a few initiatives that we have done over the years pertaining to the legacy of Father Damien. So it all started, of course, in 2009 with the canonization of Father Damien to Saint Damien by the Vatican. So in 2009, we had a photographic exhibition at our offices in New York, where you see here Father Damien in the middle, together with the patients and inhabitants of Kalaupapa. In 2011, we had a book presentation, The Spirit of Father Damien, by Jan de Volder, and you see the author left and the book cover right. In 2012 and 2015, we prepared for the co-naming of 33rd Street in Manhattan between 1st and 2nd Avenue as Father Damien Way. So that preparation had a lot of documents, a lot of partnerships with the Archdiocese here in New York, the Diocese of Honolulu, with other religious, but also governmental and non-for-profit partners. So here you see the resolution by the Manhattan Community Board 6 to adopt renaming or co-naming 33rd Street to Father Damien Way. And on the page on the right, you see 23 in favor, 2 opposed, and 4 abstentions. So a very large majority adopting the resolution to name the street to Father Damien Way in New York City. We also received a lot of support from the Hawaiian community. Halawai, which is the Hawaiian community organization in New York, wrote letters, as well as the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, but also elected congressmen and women and senators from Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard, Brian Schatz, Colleen Hanubasa, and Daniel Akaka supported our initiative, as you can see here. Of course, the Diocese of Honolulu, Bishop Silva, who many of you probably know, and also the United States Department of the Interior, the National Park Service, because Kalaupapa is administered together with the State Health Department of Hawaii and the National Park Service. So all endorsed our efforts to co-name 33rd Street to Father Damien Way. And even the Hawaiian State Senate passed a resolution, the resolution that you can see in front of you, endorsing Father Damien Way in New York. And that street co-naming was inaugurated in May 11th of 2015, of course, the important feast day for Father Damien. And you see here a letter supporting this inauguration by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and current New York Mayor Bill de Blasio. We also commissioned an illustration by Flemish illustrator Klaas Verplanke to kind of to use throughout the celebration and commemorative activities in 2015. This is another illustration that Verplanke did to in New York to keep social distancing. So definitely connected to New York. And in 2015, like I said, here you have it, Father Damien Way. Together on the right, you see Cardinal Dolan, of course, of the Archdiocese of New York. And on the left is our former First Minister of Flanders, Geert Bourgeois. And some more pictures of the festive day. Again, Cardinal Dolan and former First Minister Bourgeois, people from Hawaii. There was, of course, a ceremony at this chapel, the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary. Other people attended. Of course, Boogie and Ivy, two of the patients, were flown over with the support of Hawaiian Airlines to give testimony on their life, as we also gave them a sculpture of Damien. And unfortunately, as you know, passed away. Boogie passed away quite recently, but it was really an honor to meet them and to actually have patients there at the ceremony. It was very important for us. You know, that's in the end of the day, that's what it's all about. You know, having these patients tell their story, how Damien helped their ancestors, you know, in the late 19th century, and what Father Damien, Saint Damien, means to them and their community. We also had a plaque unveiling, as you see here, which is still at the chapel on 33rd Street in New York. And here are some more pictures of the evening. So we had traditional Hawaiian singing, as well as hula dancing. Everyone also received a lei. So in that sense, we also really wanted to respect the Hawaiian nature of the event, not only focusing on the fact that Damien was born in Belgium, but also on where he worked and lived, which was, of course, in Hawaii on the island of Molokai, and that Hawaii played a very important role in his life. And we see the state of Hawaii and you know, its leadership, but of course also its people as important partners in this series of projects, remembering, commemorating the life of Damien. So in that sense, the Hawaiian spirit was with us that evening, as you see many people wearing leis and the dancing and the music. We also had Senator Kalani English from Hawaii give a speech with Timothy Dolan, as well as the right bottom picture is Bruno Chryseels, who is a professor and then the director of our Antwerp infectious disease university, the Institute of Tropical Medicine in Antwerp, which is a world-renowned institution focused on neglected infectious diseases like Hansen's disease. So it's very important for us to have, the backing from, the Catholic Church, but also the state of Hawaii and the medical academic field to bring these together and see how we can further the legacy of Father Damien in the 21st century, not only spiritually, but also with health and human rights initiatives. This is just the invitation for Father Damien Way inauguration, as you see here together with the Archdiocese in New York. And we also distributed prayer cards, which I know are very familiar to you on Damien, but also of Mother Marianne. We had a flyer that was developed especially for the occasion. In 2018, so we took a little break after that inauguration in 2015, about 3 years, and in 2018 we had a book presentation at our office of Kate Mahoney. Kate Mahoney was diagnosed as a girl with ovarian cancer, and after praying to Mother Marianne, she was miraculously cured, and the physicians couldn't find an explanation for it. So she was one of the miracles that the Vatican considered in making Mother Marian Cope into Saint Marian. And in that sense, it's also important to note that for us, of course, Father Damien is our main focus, but he couldn't have done the work without Mother Marianne from Syracuse, New York. And as I mentioned earlier, she cared for him when he contracted the disease and basically took over his work after he died. So in that sense, we are very happy to include Mother Marianne and her legacy in all our initiatives, and we work well together with the current sisters that represent the Franciscan order to further her legacy and honor her and what she did in Kalapapa as well. In 2009, we were lucky enough to receive the relics of the two saints, Saint Damien and Saint Marianne. On the right, you see St. Patrick's Cathedral on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and we had a service in the presence of relics of the saints. And here you see some pictures. On the right, I look kind of nervous holding the relics of Mother Marianne, while our delegate is holding the relics of Father Damien. And so as you see again, we used leis and traditional Hawaiian elements in the Mass to honor not only the Catholic faith of Saint Mary and Saint Damien, but also the fact that they were rooted in these Hawaiian traditions, which is, as I mentioned, very important to us. In 2019, just before the pandemic hit, there was a graphic novel published on Father Damien, which our government supported. So we distributed them in the Hawaiian Islands as well. Here in New York, we have plans to distribute them within the Catholic school system here before the pandemic, but because of COVID-19 and the remote learning, we haven't been able to distribute those as we planned. But they're a great learning tool for younger people to learn about Father Damien, and I actually enjoyed the graphic novel immensely as well. So those are some of the initiatives we took in the past to remember Father Damien, to promote his legacy here in the United States. A lot of it was centered on the New York City street co-naming of 33rd Street into Father Damien Way. And it's been a great catalyst moment to partner with others, and we're always seeking to collaborate with other organizations and groups that want to honor Mother Mary and Father Damien. So in that sense, please reach out if you have any ideas or plans of your own. And this is one of the last parts I want to touch on, of course, is that for us as a government, you know, Father Damien, of course, was a Catholic priest and is a saint, but, you know, also did immense work in the realms of human rights and healthcare before those even were termed, right? So, as I said, as an example for charity, healthcare organizations and foundations. Just to give you a few examples, this is the Damien Actie, a Belgian non-for-profit that was established to promote his legacy, but of course to care for those patients with leprosy, and is still named after him and is still active today. When, of course, in Barack Obama, when Father Damien was canonized, also mentioned Father Damien in his remarks, and saw him not only as an example to follow and as someone dealing with Hansen's disease, but also an example in the pandemic of HIV and AIDS. So in that sense, Damien was very much on the former president's mind as well in that context of healthcare and caring for them. Of course, you could argue that there's that there are similarities between being outcast 100 years or 150 years ago when you contracted leprosy, and also how you were outcast in the 1980s with the AIDS epidemic here in New York. People not wanting to touch your hand, people wanting to be afraid sitting next to you. So not only these patients have a health problem, but also are being ostracized out of society, and that's where, you know, we can learn from Damien to embrace them and not just look at, okay, how scarred is your face, or what is your medical condition, but be there for these people who are being, you know, ostracized by society and sometimes their own family and friends. And of course, Father Damien is a martyr of charity, inspired a lot of organizations. As I mentioned, the Institute of Tropical Medicine in Antwerp, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who fight against neglected tropical diseases, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the United Kingdom, and other organizations, of course, in Flanders, Damien van Daag as well. And in that sense, you can connect the legacy of Father Damien, what he meant to the mission of the United Nations. So this is the United Nations headquarters with the flags of all the countries in front of them on a beautiful blue day in New York City, which is an organization we work with as well. And you can think of Damien being there as an example when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to including people who have been ostracized by their own societies, maybe because of sickness or war or other issues. In that sense, our government works closely with South African countries such as Malawi, Mozambique, and South Africa in the fields of education and healthcare and entrepreneurship. And in that sense, we also look to the history of our greatest Belgian, Father Damien, in our work with those countries and helping those less fortunate than us in rebuilding themselves and having a self-worth, right? Not only helping them as charity, but as Damien did, being one of them and including them in your efforts and making people as you, not treating them as patients, but basically including them in your society and including them in your community. And that's just something very important that I feel as well. And then connecting with healthcare, of course, you've all heard of it the last few months. Pfizer with the vaccinations for COVID-19, basically European headquarters is in Belgium, in the village of, or the city, I should say, of Puurs, and also Johnson Pharmaceutica is also making vaccines. So in that sense, you know, the healthcare legacy of Father Damien also lives on today in Belgium, where we see again that we play a pivotal role in this distribution of vaccines and other elements to battle the current COVID pandemic. And in that sense, this is Dr. Peter Piot, who discovered Ebola in Africa many years ago and is very active on the front of infectious diseases now, also advising the European Commission on its COVID response. And of course, was also very much inspired as a young man by Damien in his work in Africa. So that's kind of like where we were in the past, where we are today. And I just want to talk to you briefly about where we will be going into the future. So as you can see, the generations after us should also look to Father Damien, to Saint Damien in their work and their life, dealing with healthcare issues, dealing with human rights issues, dealing with spiritual issues. And of course, the Damien and Marianne of Molokai Education Center that is currently being developed in Honolulu is an important part of that. The government of Flanders has donated financially to the center this year, and we encourage others to contact the center and Father Lane specifically if you have any interest in learning more about the center. And for us, this is a great example of how to reach new generations, how to reach young people who might not know of Father Damien and Mother Marianne, to tell them about their life story and their life's work. And then I'll continue, or I'll end rather, with a quote that will be seen in the center when it will be finished eventually. Father Damien's legacy continues to inspire future generations, and that's what we hope for. We hope that the legacy of Damien and Mother Marianne will live on, and that people will not forget about the work and life and those amazing things they accomplished with the people of Hawaii, and how they had an immense impact on researchers, on nurses, on doctors, on professionals from healthcare to pharmacy to social studies, and of course to priests and fathers and sisters in the Catholic faith to go out there and put yourself on the line for others. And that inclusion for me is so very, very important. You know, when you think of it, what would you do, right, in the 19th century when, you know, where they didn't have doctors and hospitals or infrastructure like they do now. He came on a boat from Europe to America, and then from America to Hawaii to take care of these people that he hadn't met, that he actually didn't know much about. And he not only cared for them in their physical needs, but also in their spiritual needs, in their practical needs, and he became one of them. And that's something that, yeah, is just very inspiring, not only, and that's why we want to, as a government, continue his legacy here in the United States, together with our partners in Belgium and as well as our partners in Hawaii. So that's where I'll leave it. I understand that some of you might have some questions. So anyway, I want to thank you again for your attention and your time this Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, wherever you are. And let's go to Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. What a wonderful presentation. You are truly a historian, and thank you for bringing all this information. So what we like to do now is to open up we have some time for questions and answers or comments that you may have. So I would like to ask, does anybody have a specific question? And you can just share in your in the chat blog, and we will go ahead and be sure that we get that question for you. Trying to get my chat over here open so I can see. Sorry. In the meantime, when we are waiting for people to perhaps give us some questions or answer, Nicolas, I would like you share in your presentation quite a lot of information about how the media, the government, and the leaders of Virgin kind of share their devotion, their respect to Father Damien in the country. But I would like to ask you, how do you personally see or can describe for us the devotion of the regular people, the normal people? And I'm interested to know not only those that practice the Catholic faith, but those others that perhaps they are not Catholics, but they are from Virgin. And how do you see them sharing or promoting or the devotion to Damien in the country?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Deacon. So, yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of Damien as a saint, and in that sense, I really do think he's a saint for the 21st century, because he does not only speak to religious communities. So, I'm in Belgium. His example, the history of what he did in Molokai is taught in elementary schools, Catholic or secular. And in that sense, it's important to see him as a priest and as a faith leader. Yes, definitely. But I think he really touches people who maybe have lost their faith or are or not part of the Catholic Church or any church, because of those elements I've mentioned, that he was a human rights activist, reaching out to these people who were ignored by their own leadership, by their own authorities, who were cast aside because they had a debilitating disease, which is now curable, but wasn't in that time. And he went in there with no really sense for his own safety or health. And that I feel we can all do, Catholic or non-Catholic. We can go in our own communities or abroad and look at people who need help. Is it homelessness or other diseases, or, as President Obama mentioned, the HIV patients? That's something that so Damien inspires us to look around us and see, well, how are you doing, right? And why are you, not in society and bringing people closer together. So I think he really took up a leadership role, and that's something that's universal, not just in his, just so much more than being a priest, in my opinion.
Thank you. We had a question here, and I actually was also curious about it. Colette Higgins is asking, when you show us the map of the route of Damien coming to United States, to Hawaii, how was that? Did he go the way down to South America and then went up, or did he go across country on a train?
No, I think that there was he went with a Belgian ship and basically they went around South America. I don't think he landed on the East Coast and then took a train or a carriage or anything like that. I think they went directly to the Hawaiian Islands. I would have to look up, maybe he stopped along the way in that time, late 19th century, but it's not that he landed in New York or anything like that.
Okay. We had another question over here on reference of the copy of the graphic novel. Somebody mentioned that they visit Tremelo and they pick up a copy on Dutch, and they wanted to know if it's available copies on English and how we can get those.
Yeah. So there is an English translation available since a year and a half now, which was distributed right before the COVID pandemic. So I think I showed my email address. So if you would want a copy, I could bring you in touch with with Damien vandaag, Damien Today organization, who basically helped create and write the graphic novel. So yes, the short answer that we have English copies available.
That would be wonderful. And what we can do, as you all know, at the end of this presentation, we are going to be, about a week from now, we are going to be posting in our website a copy of the recording of this presentation, and also a copy of the slides that Nicolas used today for the presentation. And perhaps right there, we can have Nicolas that information for the people of how they can get in touch to be able to get, because I personally would like also to get a copy of that graphic novel. So that way we will have that information available for all of you. So give us about a week or so, and we will have that posted in our website, the DMCCHawaii.org website. We had such a wonderful testimonial here from Bernadette Kowalski, a nation Hawaiian, born and part of a military family. Bernadette sharing her story here very beautifully, and her devotion to Damien and Marianne, and how she, as a catechist, had taught about both of them. But I think the most touching part is the ending part of her testimonial here, when she shared that her brother had cancer, and he has such a devotion for Father Damien, and he survived cancer for over a decade, praying to him when they gave him a month ago. So we thank you for that, Bernadette, for that sharing. We pray for your brother, we pray for you, and and for all the people of Hawaii and around the world, as Nicolas has shared with us today, that great devotion for Father Damien, and is amazing, and how he continues to perform miracles around the world. And such miracles like this that Bernadette just mentioned, those are the unknown miracles. We don't know those. They are not recorded out there. So we don't know how many other miracles out there around the world. Is anybody has any other comments, any other questions for Nicolas? We still have a couple more minutes that we can entertain. Any other comments or questions? Please go ahead and type it down on the chat. Or you can just unmute yourself and then ask directly Nicolas. Yeah, that's okay too, if anybody had a question for him.
Deacon and Sister Alicia, I just wanted to say mahalo to Nicolas, and your devotion to both Damien and Marianne and promoting has been absolutely wonderful. And I think your presentation today just gave us a really broader view of internationally and what's going on. So Nicolas, mahalo.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sister Alicia. Sister Alicia was one of our webinars presenters. So if you haven't seen her presentation, please go to our website. The recording of her presentation is right there. A beautiful presentation she did for us about Sister Marianne Cope, straight from Kalapapa. So you don't want to miss that. So go ahead and watch that if you haven't seen. So aloha to you too, Sister Alicia. Mahalo for being with us this morning. Anybody else would like to ask a question, or Shayla saying that she's grateful that Nicolas, you included the homeless in the presentation, your presentation. Certainly we do agree with that, and thank you for that too. You know, it's a really important part of our communities and what is happening today. Well, I just wanted to take this opportunity also to kind of share with you what's coming up in terms of our serious webinars. We're going to be taking a quick break during the summertime, during the month of June and July, but we are going to return in August with a really wonderful, exciting presentation about the relationship that existed between our monarchs in Hawaii, especially Queen Kapiolani and Saint Damien in August, and then in October, Queen Kapiolani and Saint Marianne. And these two presentations are going to be presented by our wonderful Colette Higgins, which she is with us this morning too on this presentation. So we look forward to hear what she's going to have to say to us about those wonderful relationships between the monarchs in Hawaii and our saints. And then we are going to end our year webinars in December 11 with a wonderful panel that's going to speak to us about Joseph Dutton. Joseph Dutton, as we all know, we know him as a brother Dutton, and he also was a resident of Kalapapa. They assisted and helped Father Damien, and after the passing of Father Damien, continued Father Damien's work in Kalapapa, a native from Vermont, and we got some people with us this morning from Vermont. He was a veteran from a Union Army lieutenant who converted to Catholicism, and he worked together with our saints. So stay tuned for that also in December coming up. And again, this is some pictures of our Queen Kapiolani and Brother Dutton with some of the patients on Kalapapa. So continue our evangelization through the Corporal Works of Mercy's webinar series. And this is our flyer promoting Colette Higgins' presentation coming up on August 14 and then in October. So just keep an eye of our website, and very soon we'll be sending out our pre-registration for everybody to go ahead and start signing up for these amazing, wonderful webinars. Now, these webinars cannot happen if it's not because of the support of all of you and the people that constantly support us and the DMCC. So we are forever blessed with your support, and we will love to continue doing this. So we ask for your consideration of a monetary gift. You can go to our website again at the dmcchawaii.org and click on our gift button and help us continue with our mission, which is to educate, inspire, and empower, like Nicolas did for us this morning. He really educated us in the life of Damien and the history of Damien, and kind of continue inspiring us with all the wonderful work that has been done and continue to be done in the future. So we ask you, like all these people that have donated in the past, we thank you all for your donations. We are gratefully honored that you had decided to help us, and we ask anybody else that may would like to help us. You know, any donation is good, doesn't have to be big or small, whatever you can, we help. We thank you for that. Not only monetarily you can help us, there are other opportunities to volunteer for the DMCC. So if you like to volunteer, help us in any way, any fashion, please connect with us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so all the wonderful social media out there. So you can come and connect with us, or you can email us directly to volunteerdmcc@gmail.com. and share with us your talents, your gifts, so that we can continue to promote our saints here in Hawaii, but also around the entire nation. So finally, Nicolas, thank you. It's been really a great honor to have you with us this morning, and for your wonderful sharing. And And I would like, in our Catholic tradition, I would like to finish this morning with a prayer. And I would like to say a prayer to Saint Damien of Molokai. So if we all bow our heads, and in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we pray, O Saint Damien, enlightened by the Holy Spirit and moved by the sorrows of the poor, you dedicated yourself tirelessly to the service of the lepers and became one like them. In doing so, you enhanced their God-given dignity to the last minutes of your priestly life, regardless of many trials and sufferings. Since then, your name has become a great inspiration for countless people throughout the world. We, touched by your self-sacrifice, beseech you to help us follow your footsteps in sharing our time, energy, talents, and other God-endowed gifts with our brothers and sisters in the Lord. Now you have been glorified with Jesus Christ in the heavenly kingdom. We ask you to continue interceding for us before our loving and caring God, that we may have the gift of faith in Him, humility, and the courage to bring love and healing to our poor brothers and sisters in the world. And we pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, and we always pray remembering you. Amen. Saint Damien of Molokai, pray for us. Saint Marianne Cope, pray for us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a wonderful, beautiful day, wherever you are, back in the East Coast, middle of the nation, or here in Hawaii. Have a safe, wonderful summer, and we look forward to see you in August. God bless you. Take care. Aloha, mahalo.